Well, welcome to today's Lunch and Learn presentation by the Industrial Solutions Group. Today, we're going to talk about decision-making fundamentals for engineers and technical managers. I'm the presenter. I'm Mike Burchak, Managing Principal of the Industrial Solutions Group. This is my contact information. This is a 30-minute presentation in order to be efficient on everybody's time. But if you have any questions or comments after the meeting, feel free to call me or send them to me by email. Decision making is an important topic because it is decisions that drive our organizations forward. There are some pretty popular leaders here, pretty well-known leaders, and it's easy to come up with a list of leaders that talk about decisions and the importance of making proper decisions. Bottom line is, if you want to have a world-class organization, you need to be making world-class decisions. There are many examples of people that do that well and organizations that do that well. Unfortunately, we all make decisions that aren't quite world-class. It's deceptively simple to make a world-class decision. There are only 5 steps in making a decision. First, you identify an opportunity or a need that your organization has. Secondly, you have to identify some improvement options. Third step is to evaluate those options. And when you come to a point of view, you recommend and get a management decision or some authority to agree to you, and then you have to execute it properly. If you do all of those steps in a world-class way, then you end up with a world-class decision. Very good decision that moves the organization forward, maybe not just for tomorrow, but for years to come. But failures occur because we don't always execute these decision steps properly. And here are some examples. We're all familiar with the coal industry. Well, 50 years ago, the coal industry was king. It was the cheapest fuel. People would want to convert and use low-cost coal. They're struggling for market share these days. The reason? I think they were a little bit short-sighted. They thought of their business as the coal business instead of the energy business. So they made a mistake right in step one, which has led them to significant business issues these days. Earlier this year, there was a large bridge collapse in the Baltimore Harbor area, the Francis Scott Key Bridge, because a large shipping vessel lost its engines and drifted into a pier, which took out a pier that carried several lanes of an interstate highway system. But there are a lot of examples of bridges that are properly protected with adequate bollards so that large vessels that lose their engines don't take out the bridge. Somebody didn't identify an improvement opportunity on that bridge. One of the most common failures is back in 1173, the Leaning Tower of Pisa. And in retrospect, had they had the ability, maybe they had the ability and didn't use it. If this structure had been moved 10 meters in any direction, it might have been just fine, but they put some on good soil, some on poor soil. It settled unevenly. Many of us started with BlackBerry cell phones. They were the leader in the marketplace prior to 2010, and all of a sudden they collapsed. They had recommendations to follow iPhone's leads and others to back off on push buttons, and just decided not to do that. And you can't find a BlackBerry phone today. They're a very small software company. And finally, in 2013 in Philadelphia, or 2019 in Philadelphia, there's an example, just a refinery fire. Worked for a number of years, but there was a failure to maintain safety systems, and just a failure to execute properly. So anywhere along the line, we can trip up and fall short of world class, which leads us kind of to a long, dark road. If you want to make a poor decision, what steps do you take? Well, first, in that first step, maybe you are a little bit apathetic about the organization. Your vision isn't as good as it should be. You're overly conservative, and that'll mess you up on milepost one. Milepost two, you just have a shortage of ideas. A lack of innovation will get you in trouble. Um, Milepost three, your resources are sparse or maybe inadequate. Leaning Tower of Pisa then doesn't properly check the soil. Today, it would be a real big mistake. It's so easy to get soil samples today. Sometimes organizations just get risk adverse. We don't like to take risk. If things are going along well, why improve it? And the reason is competitors will catch up with you. World class organizations keep moving forward. So there is no such thing as an organization that stands in the same place long term. There's also a symptom sometimes not invented here. Well, it wasn't our idea. They came up with it, and there's a reluctance to grab onto one of those decisions. And then sometimes it's just a failure to get the point across. There's really a good idea out there. A lot of people agree with it, but for whatever reason, you just fall short of getting the final hurdle in agreement to move forward. And finally, execution. The devil's in the details. We talk, there are a lot of courses, there are books written about project management, construction issues. A lot of times budgets get tight in this phase. And sometimes instead of a do it right attitude, it's real easy to fall back into well, it's good enough. And that can blunt some really good ideas very late in the game. Sometimes when you look at it, or in some ways I look at it, it's a wonderful wonder that decisions get made at all in our today's organizations. Uh, in a modern manufacturing plant, there are lots of stakeholders, and every stakeholder has their own corner, their own neck of the woods that they really want to move forward. So if somebody, a warrior, wants to come forward and try to improve something, then they get bombarded with, yeah, let's improve. But when we do it, we need to do these things as well. And it can really overload somebody and grind somebody down very quickly. But that's not it. It's just not the stakeholders that are inside the organization. You also have stakeholders at regulatory agencies. Everything's got to be done according to codes, environmental permits, quality regulations. Some of these are in-house standards, manufacturing standards. We still aren't done. You have the local community. Uh, Noises can be a problem. People are wondering why you don't get more jobs in this addition or this change to an organization. Uh, how am I going to park if I've got all those traffic problems? Again, stakeholders that need to get heard because they demand to get heard if you don't incorporate them in the process some way. And finally, you have the shareholders, the people that own the organization, concerned about things that shareholders are typically concerned about: growth, long term, shareholders, profitability, health of the overall business. But if you'd manage to get it right, you can really have something good going. And just again, it's a fundamental presentation trying to come up with some ideas on how to get through this process that a lot of times can just feel like herding cats. So let's go through them. Fortunately, we'll go through the tools, the steps again. Fortunately, there are some tools that can help us get it right. First thing that should be on a lot of people's minds is to really have a good idea of where it is you're going. And that's what the master plan does. Try to figure out exactly you what the goal is, and what the end result is. When you do that, that helps you with direction and ideas. And then at that point, there will be ideas, and you can do a good best value option analysis on those ideas to try to come up with the best approach and the best way forward. It's not over. The job of a technical manager, the job of an engineer is to be able to present these ideas and the work that's done in a persuasive way. Try to get, it's called leadership, try to get other folks in the boat and understand, or at least get more input so you can make your idea even better. And then finally, it's all about project management, schedules, and estimates, where a lot of us in the technical business spend a lot of our lives working on projects and executing plans. We'll talk just a brief minute about what a master plan does. It basically should do a good job of letting us know where we are now, where we need to be in 5 to 10 years, and how it is we're going to get there. What are the major steps that are involved? You don't need to have every detail, but basically you're putting out a milestone path, a road that you're going. It needs to be visionary and needs to look at where do we want to be in 5 years? So what are the goals? A little bit of stretching for an organization is healthy. It needs to be collaborative. All those stakeholders we talked about need to be okay with it, or they can really slow down, maybe even kill the process as it goes along. And then make it very benefit driven. Why is it we're doing this? And you're dealing with ideas like, can we be more reliable? Can we make better products? Are we better meeting the market needs? Try to provide an understanding in your own minds and in everybody that's involved on why it is that we move forward. And finally, there's always a practical nature. Sometimes dreams are so big that nobody ever really figures out how to execute them. So the good master plans tend to be practical. Not going to go into it in detail. We do have it's a 1 hour webinar on our website. Feel free to go out and grab it. And, it goes into the master planning process in a fair amount of detail. BVOA, same way. It's kind of a talk sheet. It's just a format to try to get all ideas. You get the right players involved, get the ideas on the table, agree on rating factors, identify improvement opportunities, and then you evaluate each opportunity on key principles and key rating factors that the team has agreed with that are consistent with the master planning. And then that gives you a good basis for recommending the best option to get approval. When it comes to persuasion and presentation, I like to think in terms of a one-page talk sheet. In truth, it usually becomes more than one page, but basically it's an agenda or an outline. When we're trying to get agreement from managers that are above us, their time is short, and we'll talk a little bit about they get a lot of ideas thrown at them. So they can't spend a lot of time understanding every detail of what we put in. So I like the idea of talk sheets that have a sentence for the purpose, a background section that's 2 or 3 bullet points that get everybody. A lot of times it's a team we're presenting to, make sure that everybody gets on the same sheet of music and understands why we're here and what the opportunity is. And then we can present the proposal briefly, summarize some key features of that proposal. Oftentimes, we as engineers get really down in the weeds, too much in the weeds. So we're trying to limit, not share with people everything that we know, but share with people what they need to know in order to make a decision. And there can be a big difference between those two. And then finally, the benefits, describing a few good reasons for moving forward, and then allowing a little bit of time so that people can ask questions and share their concerns, and then lay out a couple of easy next steps for people. A couple of hints. try to hold this meeting to an hour, maybe an hour and a half, but you really want to try to be aware that you want to be not only effective, but you need to be efficient when you make a presentation like this. Um, Secondly, I talk about a one-page presentation, but when you get to items 3, 4, and 5, maybe a second page for each of those to detail it a little bit more. You could probably get away with that and squeeze it into that hour presentation. I usually also like to have some pocket pieces because we're sharing maybe 5 or 10% of the information we've gone through and the work we've gone through in order to get to a meeting like this. But people ask questions. So it can help to have something prepared, certainly have answers prepared, but maybe even a graph or a chart if you anticipate a certain question coming up. Fourth one is I like to do some pre-sale going into meetings. Usually when you go into a meeting like this, there's a couple of people that have been close to the project team that really know it. I kind of like to talk with them, get them in the boat, and understand what kind of questions they have on their mind. I really don't like big surprises in one of these meetings, and the little pre-sale sessions can really help understand what kind of questions that you'll be receiving. And then I had an old boss that told me telling is not selling. We can be very drone-like sometimes in our presentation. This is really all about selling. It's trying to, you're moving through inertia. You got a management team that is moving in a certain direction, and really what you're doing is you're proposing a change in direction in their plans. So that's what the selling and the persuasion is all about. So let's look at it from a management standpoint, what they're dealing with. They get hit from all sides with all kinds of ideas. There are some crackpot ideas, but there are also a lot of good ideas. There are a lot of good ways of improving all of our organizations. Well, one limitation that this particular decider has, maybe a plant manager, is that they only have an available budget of $2.5 million. You add up all these requests, far exceeds $2.5 million. In fact, it comes up to $8 million. So now you're the decider. How do you decide what to do and what not to do? It could be a personality contest. It could be, I'm from process. I always give process what they need. But is that the way to get a world-class decision? Likely there's a better way. I like to think of management decision making in terms of going through 3 gates. Gate 1, the manager is asking, is this proposal consistent with the master plan? There are only 2 answers. It's either yes or no. If yes, I can move ahead to the next gate. If no, I can reject it. A real simple answer here is somebody's maybe needs money to fix a piece of equipment. Maybe it's an air conditioning unit. But the master plan says that in a year we're going to get rid of this building. Well, there's no sense spending money now on an air conditioning unit that's going to be site cleared in a year. So that master plan is a real useful decision-making tool that can help screen a lot of ideas that on their own might have been a decent idea, but it doesn't help us go where we want to go. It doesn't help us get in the direction we want to get to. Gate 2, has the homework been done? Has there been study, BVOA details that ensure that we have a practical, low-risk idea here? Again, it's either yes or no. If not, if yes, go ahead to the next gate. If not, might be a good idea buried there, might be a diamond in the rough, but I can't say yes to it now. I need to get more information. I need to defer this question. So it's off the list. Gate 3, is a good economic study. What do the economics say? Because now you've got to separate great ideas from good ideas. Are we using our resources in the best way? And if yes, the answer is yes, then let's go ahead and execute it. If not, some good ideas get pushed. They could get delayed until maybe another year in the future when we have more money. Um, some of the best managers aren't afraid to go up and say, "Hey, we budgeted a certain amount. If you've got any money, I'd like to do some more things. There are some more good ideas out there we need to pursue," and ask for more funds. And that can really accelerate the growth of organizations. Now let's talk about net present value just a minute. I kind of think of it as a bird in the hand. If, as an example, if it's not a trick question, but would you rather have $100 today, or would you rather have $100 in a year? And everybody knows I'd rather have $100 today, because in this case, maybe my time value of money is worth 8%. I can invest it and I can have $108. You give me $100 today and it'll be 108 in a year. And that's really all net present value is doing, is it's trying to, when you get all these cash flow streams from projects, there are rebuilds, there are savings, there's inflation. So you get cash flows over the whole life of the project. And its question is, how do we bring it back into today's dollars so that we can be comparing apples to apples instead of apples versus oranges and grapefruits? So here's a simple example. So somebody has an idea, costs $100,000 to implement. Let's assume that it's got a 10-year project life and that our time value of money is worth 8%. So in the first column, we show the year when the cash comes in or goes out. And then in the second column, we show what the amounts are. So those are the actual checks that get written in every year. So you can see we spend $100,000. That's negative. We have to take $100,000 out of our pocket, install the equipment. But every year we're getting 30, 35, 40,000 until the equipment starts getting older and maintenance costs go up and it starts drifting down a little bit. Well, now we've got to discount those future cash flows into current dollars. And to do that, you divide by the one plus the time value of money, the 8%, and then just factor it up by the year that you're in. So in the year zero expenditure, $100,000, you divide it by 1.08 to the zero power is 1. That's net present value is $100,000. You see that in the last column. In year two, the 30,000 that you spend is next year, or that you bring in, that's saved, but it's only worth 8% less than that in today's dollars. So in today's dollars, it's $27,778. Year two, 1.08 squared, year three, 1.08 cubed. You add up all of those over the 10-year life, and you end up with $183,000, which is greater than zero. So that idea in today's dollars has netted you $183,000. That's pretty good. So you would say, yep, let's go ahead and do that. That's that idea is worth a lot of money. That we've earned our pay that week. So let's look at it a little bit more from a manager standpoint. So now you're the technical manager, and you've gone through the budget process, and you've got $1 million that you can invest in projects this year. You've got 4 requests that have hit your desk. And you look at these 4 and you total them up in this little spreadsheet, and then you say, well, what do I do about this? First thing I should feel good about, boy, if I could do those for $1 million, that's pretty good. I'd rather have 3.8 million than $1 million. So that's a good investment of cash. But it's not $1 million, it's $2.5 million. I can't do everything. So what do I need to do? Something doesn't make the list here. Well, the first thing I would do is I would look at item 4 and I say, well, that's an easy decision, because somebody hasn't yet done their homework. They haven't done the net present value. They haven't put economics around it. So I can ask for more information from my utility manager. I can push that back. I don't need to decide that today. And I'll just take that one off the list. If they get their act together, then I can look at it in the future. But I really like the idea of doing items 1 and 3. The capital cost together is $1 million. And if I look at the net present value of those, it's over almost $2.2 million, $2,150,000 for a $1 million investment. And that pays out a lot better. I could have done the $1 million on item 2, but that's only 1.7 million in net present value. My organization benefits more by the bigger net present value. I'm going to do 1 and 3 now. I can say yes to those. The other thing I'm thinking is 1.7 million looks pretty good to me compared to 1 million. It's actually a pretty good project idea, and they've done their homework, but I don't have enough money to do it. I think I'm going to go up and I'm going to float this idea and see if I can't find another $1 million and maybe do that. If not, I guess we'll just have to carry it over into next year. One weakness in persuasive arguments that I find is we usually just assume that people understand the benefits. Give them some numbers, show them what the capital cost is, the the return cost, and they'll figure out everything else. Usually, when I fall short on persuasion, it's because I got lazy on the benefits. Reminding people why it's important to do this, why this innovation, why this initiative will help move us into the future. There's a long list of these. I could have doubled it or tripled it. But if you spend all your time just throwing, yeah, it does this, then this, well, that's not persuasion. That's just telling people, see? So my presentation tips are, I usually stick to 3. What are the 3 most important reasons for doing this? And I'll provide a brief description of that benefit. Why do I say that is true? But then when presenting in that talk sheet and the format, we'll take them from the most important reason to the least important reason. And wherever possible, it kind of quantify it in economic terms. That proves that you've thought through it, and that proves that it's practical and that there aren't a lot of hidden issues there. So that's my approach on really making sure this is the area that oftentimes when you get in a hurry, you just lose sight of and you just assume the person gets it. But the truth is they don't get it the way you have been because you've been way more into the details and you understand the ins and outs better. So in summary, I would say it's important to recognize that if you want a world-class organization, you get a world-class organization because you make world-class decisions. So every decision that gets made, day in and day out, we work and we strive, and that's got to be the goal, is to try to make the best decisions we can so that our organization moves ahead as best as it can. And the tools, in my mind, are more than just nice to haves. I think there are so many pieces going on with stakeholders and variability on number of innovations and number of options that you can apply in order to get from one place to another. It's like taking a road down across the state. There are a lot of different ways to get to the next city. So what's the best way? And that's where the tools really come in. So I just really encourage people to make it more of a planned process to help avoid some of those mistakes that I talked about earlier. And that's the end of today's Lunch and Learn. I appreciate everybody attending and participating. I'll leave this screen up here for a couple of minutes. If you've got any questions or comments, feel free to give me a call, shoot me an email. And again, I really appreciate it. And we'll make sure that you get an invite to our next Lunch and Learn. Thank you very much.